Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Council. I am Luke Anthony Walsh, and joining me is the Andy Richter to my Conan O'Brien, Mr. Michael Brown.
I came up with that one, but I'm
Yes,
glad to
feel
see it getting
proud.
its use. Yes.
Yeah, we might be doing more in the future because I'm running out of ideas. As always, we'll be going through your council issues and looking at this week's headlines and much more. Without further ado, let's crack on. Michael, let's have your first council issue of the week.
Yeah, okay. I'm starting off with. I wasn't sure what I wanted to start off with, and I realized I'll start off with this. I'm cancelling the job market. Now, no hard feelings, but you recently got a job in journalism, and it was a job that I had, an interest in. It would have been nice if I got it. Let's be real here. But again, no hard feelings. But here's my issue. Okay, I'm not just going to focus on that specific thing. The in general, like the job market in the 21st century is pretty rubbish. But I think obviously specifically during this time of coronavirus, lots of people aren't even getting jobs, so never mind trying to apply for more jobs. And I think that the issue is right now, if you have like a career that you want to do, like let's say you've done a master's in a particular topic like journalism, and obviously the job you're going to want to do is journalism, never mind getting a job, it's hard to even find jobs that are available. Like there are, I think, so as of last weekend, there were 3 jobs I was aware of that were entry level that were to do with journalism. One of those is now gone, and it's kind of just like, I guess that's the thing. Like the job market is just so insane, and it's basically obviously then the consequence of that is we now reached a point where in order to each individual kind of application now is way more high stakes. You can't just spam out a bunch of things. You've got to everything's more important, because it's like, oh, there's a, it used to be if someone said they found a job, that implied like they found a job and got the job. Nowadays someone says they found a job, you're just like, oh, there's a position available. Like that's all it means, because it's so rare even to have a position available. So yeah, I'm canceling the job market in general. So I would say in general, kind of the 21st century, obviously post-recession, all that kind of stuff, but more specifically obviously under the coronavirus, where it's very slim pickings.
I'm going to say one word, and you'll probably agree with it: algorithms.
Algorithms. You mean like YouTube algorithms? We love them.
Well, I think there's so much algorithmic compression going on at the moment in terms of, say you're a regular Joe, or say you're Michael Brown, and you want to apply for a job in Tesco, for example.
The dream.
You have to. So obviously you give in your CV, you give in whatnot, and you have to fill in this massive questionnaire. And if you get 2 questions wrong, you don't get through.
Yes.
Like, and it's ridiculous. Like you could have all the skills that they want, but because you can't answer 2 questions in a silly questionnaire, you don't get the job.
It's ridiculous.
And I think there's an element whereby, obviously employers are looking for a set criteria, but the way that they present said criteria within these mazes of questions and ridiculous hypotheses is a bit stupid. Especially when you boil it down to the job itself, it has nothing to do with the questions that you got given.
No, yeah, like so that's what I don't like about it, is the kind of the whole jumping through hoops thing. Like one of the things that I'm looking at right now is something to do with the BBC. But basically, there's a thing where you could put in 100 skills. There's an option to put in like 100 skills, and I know what it's going to be. It's going to be, there are specific skills that you put in, and if you put in those specific skills, the algorithm will pick them up and it'll be to your benefit. And it's kind of just like, it's the sort of thing I hate, because it's so tedious and it's just like jumping through, like you got to write like, I'm good at writing, I don't know, yeah. And I tell you what, so before I decided on journalism, and I just had a degree in international relations, I was like, oh, I'll try and get into the civil service. The civil service, every single thing has these like situational questionnaires where you've got to say what you do in a particular office environment. And I'm ashamed to admit, I literally failed every single time. So I don't know, apparently I'm just like just would be a terrible person in an office environment, because everything, it was like these questions about like an office dispute, and I was like, oh yeah, I probably do this, and they'd be like and I was like, oh no. I'm a bad person. But no, yeah, that's the thing, especially for me, because I guess I'll turn around and give myself a bit of a compliment after talking about how much of a failure I've been at getting a job. Whenever I've gotten an interview, I've got offered the job. Like I'm quite proud of that. I have 100% success rate with interviews, in-person interviews. But that's kind of why it's even more frustrating that so much of getting a job now is, like you say, just the algorithm and jumping through hoops. So yeah, I guess that's kind of it. It's the two things together. There's hardly any jobs, and there's so many people applying for them that it's like you're just getting filtered through like an anonymous blob. And yeah, I think that deserves to be cancelled.
And I think also that there's the element where we rewind to back when you were 16 or 18 and you're looking for a job at the younger age. What are we teaching in careers? We're teaching them bugger all. Let's be honest here.
I remember my careers class.
That we learn how to do a CV or personal statement. Great,
yeah.
But other than that, it's just algorithms. Like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. So, but it doesn't apply, because at the end of the day, it is down to some of it is pure luck, some of it is skill, but most of it is algorithms.
No, yeah, it's kind of why, countries like South Korea and Israel, where they have the whole like national service thing, where it's just like you've got to do something. It's almost like a part of me, I hate to sound like I'm sympathetic to fascism or anything, but part of like the choice of a neoliberal capitalist society is actually frustrating, because it's kind of like the fact you have this choice, but then it's like you don't really have a choice because it's all just determined by these. So I'm almost like, I almost wish the government would just be like, send men with guns to your house and be like, time for your mandatory work session. Like, okay, good. At least it's, at least there's some honesty to it, rather than being like, it's your choice, but make sure you put in all the right things. So yeah, that's why I want to cancel it, because I hate it.
I agree. That is definitely cancelled. That is definitely being cancelled.
Even though you have 2 jobs.
I have about 4 or 5. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. And eventually we'll be making millions off this, so you'll have 3 jobs.
I think ultimately the secret to happiness is doing what you love.
No, yeah, I agree with that.
Being a steward at Luton Town, doing the radio show, and obviously my new job, right, writing for within Milton Keynes, even though I am a muggle.
Yes,
it's something that I look forward to, but I will enjoy doing it. So
No, yeah, I mean that's the thing. But I guess that's the issue. See, it's there's the wanting to do something you enjoy, and then there's the frustrations of how difficult it can be to, I feel like you always get the rags to riches stories about like people succeeding. You never get the stories about people just like there's never enough frustration in those stories about people succeeding. Because I feel like that's basically what it is. It's just throwing lots of shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
And there's nothing beautiful about that, except for when you get it. I guess it makes it more satisfying. But still, I'm gonna cancel it.
Okay, that is definitely for sure. It's my
what are you
turn.
Canceling?
I am cancelling this week fireworks.
Fireworks? Have there even been fireworks recently?
Well, let's rewind back.
Or was it nearly Chinese New Year?
Well, we're in between. So rewind to New Year's Eve, and we were all told there won't be any fireworks in London this year. We were like, okay, cool. So midnight struck. We said Happy New Year, and we'll watch. I don't know whether you saw it. We got a wonderful drone display instead of a major firework display, and it made me think that fireworks cause so much hassle and stress to so many that I think drones are now at a point where they can replace them in terms of displaying and entertainment. So I think fireworks should be cancelled.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I will say this. I like the of fireworks, but I feel like you can just like just really going for it. Yeah, I feel like maybe because I guess the thing with the drone displays, I like the audio visual aspect. I do think, because when you were just talking about cancelling fireworks, I was thinking I wasn't that enthusiastic about this idea of cancelling fireworks. But now you've brought up the idea of drones as an alternative, I will say that is interesting. I think, I guess here's the thing though, New Year's Eve, maybe, but what about bonfire night? Because bonfire night, let's be honest, Guy Fawkes didn't try to blow up the Parliament with drones, so maybe that would have been funny.
Yeah, but what does Guy Fawkes represent? Ultimately,
terrorism.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is, I think, to be honest, we should bring back public execution and do it on, and rather than, okay, hear me out, rather than fireworks, you know in those like terrible over the top action movies where a lot of the time people kind of get like I'm trying to think of like something I've seen it. I've seen it in something recently where it's like a guy stands in front of an RPG and someone fires an RPG at them and they go like flying like and then they explode. Yeah, I think we should do that with terrorists. just like, you know, you're convicted. Yay. No, yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, fireworks. I will say, I think. See, the thing with fireworks is that there's lots of things around it I could want to cancel. See, I'm kind of against the idea of like individual people doing their own pitiful fireworks displays. I think fireworks is actually a good argument for why collectivization can be a good thing. Because when you've just got one person doing their own fireworks display, it's pretty pathetic. But when you pool the resources, comrade, and you get all of the fireworks together, you get a much more impressive display. So kind of like for me, I think if I had to, I guess if I had to meet your cancelling halfway, I would say that fireworks should, we should reduce it and maybe replace it with drones sometimes, but also we should ban private fireworks selling and just have fireworks be like a public thing. Because that way, it's rather than it being like, oh, you've got like random people setting off their fireworks in their garden and stuff. You've just got like a big collective thing, and that way people can come together. So that's kind of what that would be my halfway thing of you know, I wouldn't want to cancel fireworks entirely, but I would like to cancel just the random individual people getting their fireworks on. That's me.
It's an interesting point, but I think on a safety concern that NetM is still putting fireworks in the hands of, you know, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, isn't it? And you know, obviously, fireworks accidents are very rare, but they still happen.
I feel like a lot of fireworks accidents happen because people intentionally do stupid things. Like the number of times you see people try and light fireworks that are like lodged in their butt crack.
Yeah, I think we've all seen too much jackass in our time.
Yes.
But I think, you know, it's not good for the environment. Certainly, animals don't like it. And you know, it's let's not beat around the bush. It's still gunpowder. It's still a very lethal chemical that you're giving over. And you know, it's. I think surely the reverse should be happening, in that it should be private, in the sense that if you want to do a display, do a smallish display, but you know, it should be more greener and should be more of a welcoming approach, and that's why the transition should be made to drones, because Chinese lanterns aren't the answer.
I do love Chinese lanterns. No, yeah, I kind of agree. I will say that, you know, that kind of North Sentinelese island, the island where there's the people who refuse to have contact with anybody from the outside world.
Yeah,
a Christian missionary died there recently. I have always thought one New Year's Eve we should get like an aircraft carrier and park it right off the coast of their island and just have a fireworks display. Because think about how mental that would be for them. Like, not even, that's kind of like my attitude. Like, lots of people talk about these North Sentinelese. My attitude's always been like, I don't want to introduce them to society. I don't want to mess with them. I want to let them do their own thing. But I do kind of just want to screw with them just a little bit. Just like do things like weird. Like maybe just one day kind of get a massive projector and put up just like Jack and Jill by Adam Sandler and just have them watch that. Like, what? No, yeah, but I mean that was kind of away from the point of fireworks. But I will say,
it's like that episode of you ever seen that episode of Futurama? I think one of the last ones, and I think it's Zurg, if I remember rightly, has meets a girl who can't smell, and they fall in love, and basically Zurg gives the woman the ability to be able to smell, and obviously when she starts to smell him, she finds it beautiful because she has no other way to say whether what smells nice or not. And I think it's that, in the sense that when you give them an inch, you sort of see how they grow and how the seed sort of blossoms from there. Yeah. So
I haven't seen that episode, but no, it sounds beautiful. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to say, see, you've not cancelled a few of mine over the last couple of weeks, so I'm gonna say that I'm not gonna cancel fireworks.
Fuck you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just I can't agree with it. But shall we look at some comments? I haven't actually seen what we've got.
Hebrew Sand says, "Okay, I'm uncanceling Luke for his cancellation of Trump. The enemy of that particular enemy is my good cherished friend, Hebrew Sam. Thank you very much. You
Yes.
definitely thumbs up from me. Suggestion to add chapters to the video's progress bar for each thing for cancelling. That's something we will consider.
Yeah,
I mean,
actually, we need to sort out the descriptions in general because I've been terrible at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how YouTube has evolved. Over the last couple of years, because sort of nowadays, the painstaking process of waiting for a video to buffer has now become like, oh, I want to skip to this point, and timestamps are now a thing. So it's interesting how YouTube has evolved in that sort of sense.
Yeah, I am here for the chapters. I actually used them once before, but I do like the idea of chapters. Annoyingly, I will confess that I have a habit of okay, so Tom Scott, we've mentioned him before. He's someone we like to mention all the time. Something someone pointed out recently is that many of the videos on his channel are uploaded months in advance of when they're actually made public, and you'll often get like comments from him. So a video will just go public and you go into it and there'll be a comment from Tom Scott 2 months ago showing that and like basically that's something which I think a lot of YouTubers do. Like I always find it funny, YouTubers who go for like copyright strikes and things like that and have to go over a long period of time to get the video up, because for me it's like I pretty much finish a video and upload it within like an hour of time, and I'm very bad at the old I don't know, taking time to really do the post game, to use a basketball terminology, for the each individual video. But I'm planning on getting better at that in the future. It's just so hectic with all the stuff we got going on, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, it's interesting how YouTube has, to where it is now, to where it was, is insane.
No, yeah, I agree. Basically,
do you think YouTube will ever get its own download feature?
I've been wondering that. I swear they used to have one for a while, but I think what happened is the mobile app, I think for a while, had an option to download. I think it's weird that they don't, in a way, because it's sort of like implicitly, shouldn't everything on YouTube be kind of copyright fine anyway? So it's like, it's not as if you can download movies from YouTube, which would obviously be illegal because movies aren't on YouTube. So it's kind of like, I don't really see. And when you think about how important like response videos are for YouTube, and how much like YouTube is about commentary and talking about other people's content, it makes sense to me that you would be able to download it. And it feels like, I mean, there are obviously download plugins, but you feel like with YouTube being aware that commentary is a big part of their platform, they'd be like, yeah, of course, people are going to be wanting to download other people's videos so they can edit them, and comment on them, respond to them, even turn them into like parodies, like YouTube poops, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's surprising, and I would think they should add it at some point. But I think maybe part of them's worried because YouTube, maybe there's like companies who are associated with YouTube who don't understand how YouTube works, and they think it's like a copyright thing. So YouTube wants to avoid any suggestion that there's like copyright. I don't know. That's my only guess for why they don't have it already, or they're just rubbish. No, yeah. Any other comments?
No, we need more comments to come in.
Don't worry.
But Michael, how can they get in touch with us to have their issues considered?
How can they get in touch with us? They can get in touch with us at cancelcouncil@gmail.com. That's CANCELCOUNCIL. And then eventually you would, see, the problem is this is just I'm gonna start fast forwarding through these massive gaps. Whitey.
Yes. Oh, that is the highlight of my week.
You enjoyed that one, way.
And of course, you can get in touch with us on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter, which will all be in the description, won't it, Michael?
Yeah. Yes, it will be in the description.
Yes, cancel YT. That is CANCELCOUNCIL.
And I like to think that my new thumbnails are a real hit. So let's get into the news.
YT.
So we've got some 5 news stories, but 3 of them I think are very much related. We actually have quite a I was going to say quite a Twitter-themed situation, but not entirely. First of all, we've got some racism news. We love racism news, don't we? That's our favorite thing to cancel people about. So I don't know if you heard about this. This is from the Jerusalem Post. Confronted with anti-Semitism by Jewish host, Actress quits BBC show. Nigerian-born UK actress Kelechi Okafor drops out of a BBC programme meant to deal with the hashtag #MeToo movement after learning she'll be asked about alleged anti-Semitism. So the context here, I'm not going to read the whole article, is that this woman, a Nigerian woman, was invited to go on Woman's Hour to talk about Me Too. And obviously, I think basically relevant was the fact that in response to Harvey Weinstein and the accusations against him, she had basically made a remark about how Jewish people have a lot of influence over the entertainment industry and how this can be bad for black people. And she basically said that, you know, black people need people of their own race representing them rather than, I think her quote was like, fat Jewish billionaires or something from Northwest London. Oh yeah, she said some random fat Jewish guy from Northwest London. She objected to that. But yeah, so basically, in a way, it's kind of a double cancel story, because it's kind of, on the one hand, you could say she was cancelled for her comments, but on the other hand, you could say that she was refusing to enter into the free marketplace of ideas by going on Woman's Hour and talking about it. She said, you know what, if they're going to ask me about that, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So whose side are you on here? Do you think Woman's Hour was out of order? Do you think she was out of order? Or is it more sophisticated?
Okay, statement from the host, Emma Barnett, says the following. Just before I went on air this morning to present a special program about Me Too, pegged to the anniversary of Harvey Weinstein's court case, it came to my attention that one of our guests, Kelechi Okafor, has made alleged anti-Semitic remarks. I was also sent a press report of the transcript in which she had said on her podcast supporting Reggie Yates' comments about Jewish male managers and prophets. As Weinstein is also Jewish and was referenced as part of the same podcast, I was discussing with my producers the role of the guest in light of her alleged anti-Semitic comments. Kelechi overheard that chat on our open Zoom link with 2 minutes to airtime. I then directly talked to Kelechi about the allegations, standing by my queries, and said she could put her response across in the program. She denied the allegations and hung up, choosing to no longer be part of the program. I stand by my questions to my team and to Kelechi, and I was happily hosted her on the program with a question on this issue. I believe that people can always answer for themselves, but equally it is my duty to ask people what qualifies them as a leading voice in the space, and about any previous issues which may influence their views. Any guest is entitled to making their own decisions as to whether to appear on a program, but in the interest of fairness, I feel it's important to add some details to the accounts that are currently circulating in the press and social media. Women's Hour is a wonderful platform known for its robust journalism and asking all of the questions that need asking. I'm greatly enjoying my first week. That was her first week of hosting, and she gets dealt with that. I mean,
that's so funny.
It is insane, but you know, it is what it is. If you hold people to account and they don't want to face it, then that's on them, really, isn't it?
No, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. Like ultimately, and the thing is, this Kelechi Okafor woman, she had every opportunity. Like basically, she got up front an opportunity to give her response. I mean, in some sense I am sympathetic, because I guess she'd be like, well, you know, there's obviously some might say there has been a situation recently where accusations of anti-Semitism have been weaponized by certain members of the press against specific groups of people. So in a way, I can understand people being anxious about those accusations, but I'm also kind of like, at the end of the day, she had an opportunity to prepare a response. She had an opportunity to think, okay, I'm going on to this. I know they're going to ask me about this. I'll just make sure I say my piece and have that. And I kind of feel like it's like if she feels strongly about what she said enough that she doesn't want to just go out and apologize, then she should also be willing to go on there and, you know, just say, yeah, you know, I said what I said, and just explain why she said what she said. I mean, at the end of the day, I think people should be, willing to stand up for scrutiny. And, you know, at the end of the day, if someone gets us on their show and they say, hold on a minute, you hosted this rather controversial podcast called The Cancel Council, we'll say, yeah, we did. It was hilarious. You know, we'll stand by it. So, yeah, I kind of think at the end of the day, on the one hand, I'm like, I do think that the anti-Semitism thing has got a bit over the top in many ways ever since the whole Corbyn fiasco. Like nowadays, like everyone's being accused of anti-Semitism, but at the same time, I feel like if you're accused of it, just say, yeah, it is what it is. You know, there's no need to, don't deplatform yourself, bro.
I think at the end of the day, and I think not enough people say this enough, the BBC are down the line. As somebody who has work experiences, very much a freelancer for the BBC.
Mm.
They will give you every chance to explain yourself in the right context. I think nobody can dispute that the BBC are biased in one way or another. Yes, politics is a whole thing altogether. But when you're looking directly at what a person has said and the comments that they've made, they will give you every chance to explain it and to give both sides of the story.
No, yeah. I think generally speaking, they're fair. And I mean, obviously, the thing is, this is part of it's an example of how just race isn't black and white, because there have been in the UK recently a variety of issues. Obviously, Wiley was the other famous example of black people coming out and saying anti-Semitic things, and obviously, the Jews versus black people beef seems to have really spilled over in 2020. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a thing it is in 2021. I guess it will still be there, but yeah, it's basically an issue of, I can see why it's a fraught issue, but ultimately the solution isn't going to be to just refuse to talk about it in a free and open platform like the BBC. Now, speaking of racism, I've got one other racism story for you, which is a trainer, Eric Guillo. This is from Yahoo Sports, by the way. Banned for giving
everyone's favorite sports website.
Banned. Well, this is some top quality journalism. Banned for giving horse a racist name. So a horse trainer, Eric Guillot, I think that's how it's pronounced, Guillot, has been banned by the New York Racing Association for changing the name of one of his horses to a racial slur, which was directed at a black TVG analyst. And he revealed that the name of the horse was Grape Soda. So this guy entered a horse for this racing competition. I don't know, I guess the American version of I've actually forgotten. Ascot, that's it. And he thought, apparently, I guess he had kind of a beef with a black analyst. Maybe this analyst had said something that rubbed him the wrong way. So he decided to name his horse to spite this black TVG analyst, Grape Soda. What do you think? Do you think it was acceptable for this horse trainer to give his horse that name?
I mean, where do I start? I mean, it's as somebody who works within the sports industry as working for a betting company, is that you get some amazing horses named like Shakalaka Boom Boom. I'm trying to think. Number six Valverde, of course, won the Grand National in 2006.
It was like the Simpsons joke where the mob asks Bart to pick a catchphrase, and Bart's like something like don't have a cow, man.
Don't have a cow.
And then they actually do the race, and every single horse is named after a cartoon catchphrase, like, and it's Yabba Dabba Doo in second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I think in one regard, like horses' names are like Twitter users. Is that we'll get to a point where like you're going to get some wonderful horses' names, and you'll never run out of good ones. Of course, until the year 3150, where we get, and it's horse 2914567 XXX12.
Oh, actually, what about robot horse racing? That would be brilliant. Like, just, we'll love that. No, yeah, it will be.
It's already on it.
Yes, that will be entertaining. Just, but no, yeah, I think I definitely agree that it's a situation where you have these funny horse names. I think it's kind of an interesting. It almost seems to me a bit like, because here's the thing. I mean, I will say I don't know the specific beef between this trainer and an analyst. Obviously, I assume they're not exactly friends, but it kind of does remind me of the whole like caricature issue, where basically in journalism, or drawing pictures for journalism, comedic journalism, caricatures are often used. And one of the things you obviously do with a caricature is you exaggerate certain features of an individual and how they look. And of course, it seems like quite often there's an issue that comes up when a black person, or maybe even sometimes an Asian person or an Indian person, whatever else, is caricatured, because people say, now it's a racist caricature. So if you or I were caricatured in the Guardian or the Telegraph, it wouldn't be considered an issue. But if a black person or an Asian person is caricatured, there's a chance people might say, hey, that's a racist caricature. So I kind of feel like it's a similar thing with this, where you always have these comedic names, but when it's got a racial element, it becomes controversial. But having said that, in America, obviously there is such a fraught racial history, so you can kind of see why it would rub people the wrong way. I do think the food-based insults of like based on race are the weirdest insults. Like that's the thing, like grape soda. I mean, it's just like, where does it come from? It's just like a funny thing. Yeah. But yeah, I can understand why it offends people, but ultimately, I don't know. Yeah, do you think this guy should have been cancelled? I guess that's the question.
No. I mean,
yeah, let's let him off.
There are worse horse names in the world.
Yes. Now, speaking of being cancelled, this is, I think, the big news story. Occasionally we talk about things like horses being named grape soda, but other times we talk about actual hard-hitting journalism, like the fact that Donald Trump was banned from Twitter.
Yes, he was.
Obviously, this was so. Last week we spoke about the march on the Capitol, but this week, well, it's probably still last week, but before. After we recorded the show, Donald Trump was banned from Twitter. I do have a Guardian article. I don't want to talk specifically about this, but I do think it's an interesting thing that you might want to comment on. It says, now that he's been banned on Twitter, we can say it. Donald Trump was a genius at Twitter. So, yeah, basically, obviously, Donald Trump was such a prominent tweeter. He has been since before he was president, but obviously being a president elevated him to, people called him the tweeter-in-chief. And now it's been taken away from him. And obviously it's been taken away from him, I guess, because one of, we spoke about this, I think, already, this idea of tech companies trying to make it so misinformation is not spread with regard to people saying that the election was fraudulent. And then, of course, now there's the issue of, did Donald Trump incite violence? 5 people died at the Capitol attack, and that's where it comes from. So I actually do think this is an interesting debate. I have seen people who I know, people who I quite like, saying that they disagreed with Donald Trump being banned because they think it shows too much power on the part of tech companies. What do you think, Luke?
So he wasn't just banned from Twitter, of course. It was Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, yes,
a full list of all the things he's banned from, because it's quite a thorough list. I think it's everything from Amazon to Discord to Twitch to
banned from Twitch.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're never going to get to see Trump as a streamer.
No, unfortunately, I can imagine him being streaming. Just the thought of it makes me sick. Yeah, he's I'm trying to find the full list, but I know it's a thorough list. I know you can certainly search online and find the full list. But another thing that sort of was taken away from, and then this came out yesterday, is that the PGA announced that the PGA Championship won't be hosted at one of his courses. I think it's next year after. And of course, Trump being a huge lover of golf, that would have hurt, because as we discussed on last week's show, is that Donald Trump's golf course is his pride and joy, because he spends so much time there doing nothing else. So it's interesting. But of course, this time next week, Joe Biden will be sworn in as the 45th president of the United States. So
yeah, exactly.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it kind of all feels like at the end of the day, it's almost like rats abandoning a sinking ship, as they say. Like, now that he's basically finished, this is when it's all falling apart around him. And I think I will say that there's kind of 2 questions, and a lot of the time with these free speech issues, there's 2 questions. There's the slippery slope aspect, and a lot of people are saying, oh, from a slippery slope perspective, this could suggest that if tech companies have the power to deplatform leaders of countries, does that suggest that tech platforms have too much power that they can make it so Donald Trump can't succeed? And then, of course, there's the other aspect of, was this intrinsically a bad thing in and of itself? And in and of itself, I would say, at the end of the day, Donald Trump literally did, like, people talk about inciting violence as a classic example of where free speech has its limits. And I think when Donald Trump has been tweeting that the election is fraudulent, and lots of people engage in this action based on what he said about it being fraudulent, and then people died, I would say it's a textbook example of inciting violence. And if anyone other than Donald Trump had done this, they would be banned. So
Mm-hmm.
as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of like I can understand and I kind of agree with Donald Trump being banned in this specific context because, I think he's an arsehole, and I think what he did really did go against any reasonable definition of what a platform, an online platform, should be willing to tolerate. Like if this was, a Muslim saying like, oh, the Western world is terrible and needs to be destroyed, and then suddenly loads of their followers went out and stormed London, the Parliament, and then 5 people died. I think it's fair to say that Muslim preacher would probably be deplatformed. So it's kind of like applying just the same standards you would to anyone else. Trump had it coming, but at the same time, obviously, there is the fact that it is concerning that maybe next week it will be Ahmadinejad gets deplatformed, like Putin gets deplatformed because Twitter doesn't agree with Russia's foreign policy and things like that. You could really point, as these tech companies become more and more important, maybe it is a concern that actual people who are politically relevant, who should probably have a platform simply because of their political relevance, get that platform taken away. Perhaps that is a concern. So who knows? I think it's actually an interesting issue, and perhaps one which is warrants even more discussion than we have time for here. But yeah, any final thoughts?
I mean, let's see what happens after the inauguration. Of course, Donald Trump said he won't be attending. Mike Pence said he would be. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I've also got a slightly smaller, but I think quite funny story for you. This is from the Seattle Times.
Mm-hmm.
Idaho company to block Facebook and Twitter for censorship. So I find this funny. It's a company in northern Idaho has. Wait, let me see if I can find it. I think they're called Priest River. Has banned Twitter and Facebook from. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I've got it. Okay. So an internet provider based in northern Idaho says it will block Facebook and Twitter from its Wi-Fi service for some customers due to claims of censorship. Now, I just find this a nice little bit of irony, because it's like they think that Twitter and Facebook are wrong because of censorship, so their response has been to ban Facebook and Twitter from their Wi-Fi. So now I like to imagine that someone else is going to ban them because they're censoring Facebook and Twitter, and it's going to be a series of increasingly removed retribution bannings. So yeah, what do you think about this company in northern Idaho banning Twitter and Facebook for censorship?
I mean, it goes back to our previous point about Donald Trump, is that if they want to make a stand and go for it, so be it. I mean, it's like that. Going back to when the result was called back in November, Rudy Giuliani, where was he stood outside making his press conference? But a sex shop. I mean, it's
beautiful.
This is trying to cash in.
Now, I've actually got a final story, and I think this one's quite funny. Have you heard about Parler?
Yes. This again, we're still talking about Trump and
yes. So this is, well, it's not quite exactly relevant to Trump, but obviously there's been a rise of kind of free speech versions of regular websites. So, for example, there is YouTube, but then there is a site called BitChute, and BitChute is where you can find all of your favorite far-right fascist YouTubers making their content. There was also, of course, after Reddit, I don't know if you remember this, but there used to be a subreddit called Fat People Hate, and it got banned, and lots of people were very outraged that Fat People Hate was banned. So they went and created an alternative to Reddit called Vote, and now that's filled with lots of fascists and stuff. And then, of course, Twitter. Lots of people had an issue with Twitter, and they created Parlers. So Parler is, it's a cool name because it's like a parlor. It's like speaking, place where you go to entertain people. But here is the concern. Okay, so obviously Donald Trump has moved there. Lots of people have moved there. But an absurdly basic bug let anyone grab all of Parler's data. So I don't know if you heard about this, but here's the subtitle. The free speech social network also allowed unlimited access to every public post, image, and video. This is from Wired. And basically the story is that Parler has now been hacked, and all of these people's information has basically been taken by these people who obviously, I don't know, want to steal people's information, because apparently Parler did not have very good data security. So I guess it just goes to show you can't trust anyone. What do you think about these poor folks at Parler getting
I mean,
all their information stolen?
we're seeing a lot of the dark web come to the surface, aren't we? I mean, even this week, we've seen Elon Musk said in a tweet, which has been retweeted 58,000 times and liked 352,000 times, use Signal. To which Edward Snowden goes, if you don't speak Musk, that is the Signal app, which is meant to be the competitor to WhatsApp. Which leads me to a counter argument in the sense that they talk about free speech and talk about we're censorship and all that. I think our speech is pretty free anyway. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, we can sit here as British people and say our speech is fine. Have you been on Twitter? The majority of people just put memes and just have a laugh, and yes, there's serious debate at times, but it's never taken too seriously. Where it's let's. I think we've discussed this on the podcast before. Let me just open up my Twitter feed.
Well, that's the thing. While you're doing that, I'll just say that the thing I've always thought about Twitter is that I am aware that they do ban people who, even agree with me on some issues. But my attitude towards Twitter is it's never been the kind of place where people should be having serious discussions anyway. So it's kind of like there's no real harm getting banned from it. The only issue I've always had with Twitter, and this does bother me, is I've heard of instances where people have been banned from Twitter for posting links to YouTube videos and articles that go against Twitter's policies. And I think that is the area where I would say, no, that is seriously wrong. Because obviously that means, at the end of the day, Twitter, it should just be like a social networking place where you comment, jokey things or benign comments on recent public events, or you promote other stuff. And I think that that's all fine. And there shouldn't be any issue where free speech comes into question there. The only issue is if in promoting other stuff, you then find yourself getting banned because that other stuff now, 2 degrees of separation or whatever, is considered against Twitter's rules. So yeah, in general, I would agree with you that I don't care too much about Twitter's censorship issues, but for that one caveat. Anyway, let's hear what you've been posting on Twitter recently.
Oh, what I've been posting. Okay, right.
Or whatever.
This is somebody with 4,999 following and 1,009 followers. So, I'm doing it right. I'm just trying to find a ridiculous tweet. Why is this too hard today?
Slide down.
One from Good Morning Britain. Good Morning Britain was voted the most tweeted about show of 2020. Have you been getting any weird dreams lately? And it's Piers Morgan and Susanna Reid talking about weird dreams. I mean, that's the content people want. And another one is they've got the actors from GTA San Andreas in real life, the voice actors, to reenact one of the scenes. That is pretty damn cool. Yeah. Another one which says this is an extract from a book from the Twitter user Manigram. And it says the following: you may fascinate a woman by giving her a piece of cheese.
Yes. Oh, yes. I saw that actually. I enjoyed that. No, yeah, and that's the thing. Like ultimately, like you're kind of communicating there. It's not about being serious for most people. And at the end of the day, yeah, I am inclined to agree with you that it's not a serious thing. And that's why, like with Twitter, I would say it's kind of funny that Parler has been the one area that's been compromised, the one website that's been compromised, because I would say it's the area where you least of all need to really be concerning yourself with this free speech stuff, because at the end of the day, it's just Twitter. So Luke, what are you cancelling today? Or the second thing?
I guess this is all similar this week on social media. I'm going to cancel people who can't use social media properly.
Uh-oh.
Now, I'm referring to people, and I get this a lot on my Facebook feed especially, is that they post the most stupidest statuses, and I think, well, we don't need to know this information.
Oh, see, I haven't posted a status on Facebook.
I know a friend of mine. I won't name him to shame him, but it was a sense of such and such a person is watching this program, is having a wonderful, which I don't care. Like, there's a feature that says you're watching this program and you give some comment or some analysis. That's what Facebook should be about. Or somebody goes, oh, I saw you today. Was very nice to see you on a public wall, which could be sent as a Facebook message. I mean, it drives me nuts that people cannot learn to use social media properly.
Well, to be fair, the thing with Facebook is like, it's not exactly clear what Facebook is for nowadays. Because the funny thing about Facebook is
well,
that
it's not for
obviously,
Karens, is it?
well, I think it might be, to be honest. No, because the thing about Facebook, obviously, it's you don't really need it for the messenger function because you have Skype and WhatsApp for that. You don't really need it for kind of giving glib observations just casually because you've got Twitter for that. You don't need it for posting pictures because you've got Instagram for that. Like the funny thing, I mean, obviously the big thing with Facebook is the transition it had from being a place where people would mostly focus on their friends to being a place where people would mostly focus on groups. Like nowadays, my entire wall is mostly filled with groups that I'm a member of and pages I like rather than any friends I have. So yeah, I kind of feel like Facebook, it probably needs a bit of a rebranding because in a way I'm gonna, I'll agree with you that these people who use social media in a weird way are annoying. But at the same time, in the case of Facebook, I'm sort of like, to be honest, I don't really know what to use Facebook for. I just kind of have it there, no real purpose.
I found a video last night of Julius Dean. I don't know. They posted a video. The caption is "Heartwarming pregnancy announcement." It's been seen over 74 million times, and it's literally a 2-minute video of this woman making her boyfriend, fiance, to do all these things to her, like, oh, open this, do that. Just
I've seen that like that. I've seen that with like engagement too, like doing the same thing, and it's like, "Will you marry me?" on the inside. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like it's like instructions on somebody's hand, right?
Yeah.
And it's like pull this, open this. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not worth it. I mean, like, come on. Just like I shared it to my wall and I said, sorry, that sperm ain't worth that stupidity. And I guess we saw it on Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. We always say, "Oh, we got an announcement. We're engaged. We're pregnant."
How did you announce that you were engaged, Luke?
I just put "she said yes." Just as simple as that. I mean, I didn't even buy a ring, but it was, but the point is, I didn't get down on one. I think that's another story. We'll tell that for another day. But the point is, it was short. It was simple. People knew what I was on about. But the big palaver that people go to drives my head in, and I think we don't need to know. Like we really like it's yes for pregnancy and engagement, great, but like don't make a huge song and dance of it. Especially people who get engaged at this time of year when it's like, well, I don't see you planning a wedding anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a bit weird getting engaged like now because. Like, why would you, at the end of the day, I mean, I guess it's kind of get it out of the way and then get the engagement out of the way. And I mean, I know people who've been like, I know someone who was engaged for like 3 years. I guess how long have you been engaged for?
Over 2 years now.
Over 2 years. See, that's the thing. Like, yeah, people are engaged for a while. So I guess at the end of the day, there's no real harm getting engaged like now or whenever. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, I will say, maybe I'm a bit of a hopeless romantic. No, not a hopeless romantic. A hopeful romantic. But I'm not quite as down on the old people making a big song and dance about their life events. But I suppose I can agree with your cancellation. But I'll agree with your cancellation, but with a caveat. But I'm still going to agree with it. I'm just going to say, like, at the end of the day, I think, yeah, these people who don't know how to use social media, it is annoying, but I'm also kind of like, I feel like it's mostly Facebook's fault rather than the people. Like if Facebook, because I don't think you see this as much with other social media. You only see it with Facebook, like Twitter and everything else. I think it's just because Facebook, I don't know, there's something about Facebook just brings out the worst in people. And it's always been like that. Facebook has always been shit, and that's why I'm kind of glad that no one uses it anymore.
Apart from me.
Yeah, apart from you. Anyway, so maybe it's your fault. Maybe you should be cancelled for using Facebook. Now, as for me,
I haven't finished. I want to bring up one more point.
You got another point.
Back of what I was saying. So this is what I posted on Christmas Eve. Sorry, on Christmas Day even. I said, seeing a lot of people are getting engaged and announcing pregnancies, I can exclusively reveal that me and my fiance ... are fine. just as an anticlimactic reminder that I don't need to know about people. But yes, I'm glad that you've agreed that people who cannot use social media properly and know what the limit is between people's interest and people's lack of interest is cancelled.
Good. I'm glad we finally were able to establish that Facebook is terrible. No, actually, I will say, you know what? I just realized I could have told you this whole story. This is a genuine story, and I think you'll like it. I think it's exactly why this podcast needs to exist. Okay.
Apparently, journalists like stories, so
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you remember like the whole concept of vague booking?
No.
Okay, so it was like the idea was people would post status updates, but they were vague.
Yes. This is my point. That I was
okay. Yeah.
They're so, like, such and such is having a poo. Like we don't need to know that.
Anyway, so yeah, basically this was, I should say, this was like in probably 2010, maybe 2011. So like 10 years ago, basically, when I was a much younger person, and I was on Facebook, and somebody said, this girl posted like, oh, still so sad about it. Like that's what she posted anyway. So I was like, I basically said, like,
is that all she posted? She's still so sad about it.
Yeah, anyway, yeah.
And I was like, and there was no prior context.
No, like, yeah, just that on its own. So I was like, I commented like, oh, you know, why do you post this vague stuff like you want attention, blah blah. I can't remember my exact words. Obviously, it was 10 years ago. But I basically kind of called her out, and she kind of got into a bit of an argument, and then her friends started saying I was terrible. It turned out her dad had died. Like, I mean, I should say he hadn't just died. Like, he died quite like years ago, and she was still so sad about it. It's kind of like
there's no way of.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. Like on the one hand, it's in hindsight, it's like awkward. I mean, it does remind me of course, I think I told you about this when see, this is not the similar. It's a similar context, but not a similar example of course, the famous time, which I'll always remember, when our tutor Paul messaged me saying, I definitely have told you this. He messaged me saying, sorry, we're going to have to rearrange our meeting for today. I just found out my close friend passed away. And he sent me that, and I kind of skim read it, and I just replied back, okay, having a snack. And I'll always just remember that. It's just like, oh dear. Anyway, let's I'll tell you what I'm canceling now. So this is our final thing. This has been the episodes are getting longer. They got short for a while. I think it's because there's, you know what it was? It's because there wasn't much news around Christmas. Now there's news, so we're back into it. And I'm going to be canceling today being ill. Now that might sound like a pretty uncontroversial thing to cancel, but this is, I've got a specific takeaway. So one, I was ill over the weekend, from Sunday through to Monday, really. And what I realized, and this is my issue with it, when you get sick, the annoying thing is, what I don't like is the after period. Because to be honest, when I'm sick, I'm actually sick, I don't mind it, because it's like, I like being cozy. So part of me is like, you know, okay, I'm ill, that means I get to get in bed, you know, have some lovely warm soup, whatever else, you know. You can kind of take care of yourself and pamper yourself without feeling like guilty or something when you're sick. So I like that. But this is what I don't like. The period afterwards where you aren't ill anymore, but you still feel like crap because you've just been like sleeping for the last 24 hours. So you just feel like shit, and you're like, oh, and you don't have the excuse of feeling sick, but you're kind of just like, the rest of the day, you're in like a kind of purgatory where you're like half sick, half not. And that is, so I'm actually canceling, if anything, the period immediately after being sick. But yeah, I don't like it. It's my least favorite. And it was, overall, I would take being sick over the period immediately afterwards any day. So yeah, what do you think?
I mean, it's sort of a part of life, isn't it? It's like cancelling death and cancelling taxes. I mean, it's, you know, people have to get. I think again, we're talking a lot about social media this week. I think people who go on about being ill online can get in the bin, because like we can feel a little bit sorry for you.
Yeah.
But when you keep reminding us how ill you are, like no one cares.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I should I should post if I'm ill, just because I know that I produce content online, and since I produce content online, it's kind of like I feel like people should know that I'm sick, and that's why I might not.
I find it interesting how people say that I've got COVID. that's an interesting one because they're like, oh, I've tested positive. Oh no, woe is me. When actually, and without sort of glossing over the severity of COVID, 95% survival.
It's
I mean,
like, yeah, you're not likely to die. I mean, actually, speaking of COVID, I realized something also, which is I tend to overreact to being ill. And what I mean by that is that I don't try and exert myself if I'm ill. The minute I feel ill, I just am like, all right, I'm getting in bed. Everything else I'm going to do from my bed, I'm going to have, a nice warm glass of lemon and honey, or a nice warm mug of lemon and honey, you know. So I overreact. But what I realized is, I realized when I'm ill, when I get the first sense of being ill, I shut everything down immediately. And I shut everything down until there's no longer as much illness. And then what that means is that I actually recover quicker, even only after a relatively short time. And then I can continue getting back to work, having made sure that I shut everything down early before things got too out of hand with the illness. And I realized there might be a lesson in there for the government somewhere. Rather than trying to keep everything carrying on, even after everything's getting a bit too ill, what you can do is if you shut it down early, it actually means in the long run, you might have to have things shut down for less time because you deal with it sooner. Huh?
Yeah.
Looks like I'm smarter than the government. And on that bombshell.
It's not that hard, is it? So being ill, yeah, I'm not cancelling that, I'm afraid.
Oh, because it's just too typical. We only got half this time.
I know.
So yeah, I mean, fine. But obviously next week we will be back cancelling more things. I feel like usually you have the outro, but I'm going to do it this time. You can, of course, visit us on email us cancelcouncilwhitey@gmail.com.
That's CANCELCOUNCIL Whitey
about all of the issues.
You can also get in touch with us on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook will be in the description, won't it, Michael?
Yes, it will be on.
It'll be on at Council YT. That is, for one more time,
CANCELCOUNCILYT.
There we go. We look forward to hearing you. And of course, comments will be addressing that next week. I've been Luke Anthony Ward. That has been Michael Brown. We'll speak to you next week.
Back at ya.